ducking with him. I can't put my trust in niggas. I ain't trusting money, nigga had trusted Rico, see what happened to Rich Porter.
Nardo Wick has only been rapping for about 2 years, and he still somehow managed to find the blueprint for success when it comes to the hip-hop game. Last year, his single Who Wants Smoke marked him as the next big thing to emerge out of Jacksonville. And when the remix of that track featuring Lil Durk, 21 Savage, and G-Herbo landed, Wick's career was wholly cemented. Now, this 20-year-old is on the threshold of what will no doubt become an extremely successful career, and to think it all started with a $40 mic and a desire to escape the Jacksonville street life. After living through about as difficult a childhood as you can imagine, one with an absent mother who had been locked away due to her scamming activities, Wick would eventually team up with his former drug-dealing father, who would teach himself how to record music as a sound engineer so that he can help his son accomplish his dreams. Want to learn more about the incredible come-up of Nardo Wick? Then keep watching our latest episode of Before They Were Famous. Nardo Wick was born Horace Bernard Walls III on December 30th, 2001 in Jacksonville, Florida. As a child, Wick would quickly come to realize that he was going to be a product of his rather deadly environment. When Wick was only 9 years old, his mother would be ripped away from him and placed into the penal system for scamming. As for his father, well, he made his early living selling drugs in the streets.
Did the lifestyle change? Like, was your mom the breadwinner at the time?
For sure. Yeah, she was. She was getting, like, you feel me? So when that happened, but I told you I was a kid, so I really ain't, you feel me? And my daddy was like, you feel me, like drugs. So I was still straight, like, all the way up to like 13, 14.
Unfortunately, once his mother would later return home from prison, things wouldn't get much simpler. Now, with yet another mouth to provide for, the family's resources were spread thinner than ever before, and Wick would learn to earn a living for himself. Thanks to his young age, not to mention the environment he was growing up in, Wick believed that he only had one course of action: joining the streets.
That's when I started like doing like breaking in houses and then get weed and start selling weed and get a gun and start robbing like that. Then
for a while there, Wick would steal from people just to get by. After doing so, he would regularly come back home at night with thousands of dollars in cash. In fact, during a recent interview, Wick would suggest that at the time, he much preferred robbing to working a real job.
I'm gonna do it. Like, I was just like, I go rob and get like this much. Why would I go to work for a week? You feel me?
Hey man, like a guy from Marcy Projects once said, you can't knock the hustle, especially if it pays better than a real job. I mean, you can't really fault him for that. Despite the ample money that he was returning home with every night, deep in his heart, Wick knew that if he had kept going down this path, he'd never make it out of Jacksonville alive. When he was no older than a kid, his dad had introduced him to artists like Gucci Mane, Lil Wayne, as well as Future by the time he was 14. Wick had discovered his own favorite artists with the names like Kodak Black, Lil Durk, and Chief Keef. As his musical taste developed, so did his desire to work in the industry. For the next couple years, Wick would relentlessly pursue artist interviews on YouTube and learn as much as he could from the way they spoke and composed themselves, because he was less worried about learning how to write bars and more concerned with studying the game himself. Once Wick felt that he had absorbed as much as he possibly could, it was finally time to get down to work. With the help of his dad, Nardo Wick would begin writing, recording, and producing music from the comfort of his very own home. His dad not only built them a makeshift recording studio in Wick's bedroom piece by piece, but taught himself how to engineer music so that he could help his son become the rapper that he always wanted to be.
But every time he'll get a check, like a paycheck, he'll go buy some studio shit. Like the first mic, I'm talking about from scratch now. Like, he don't got no knowledge or nothing on no type of nothing. He was going on YouTube, looking it up. He bought a Personas mic, a little $40, and then I'm recording from there with ass. Even though I was recording every day though, even though it sounded ass. He was still getting on YouTube, get another check, buy a better mic. YouTube, learn how to do it. Before you know it, like, you feel me? That shit regular. Like, I ain't have to go to the studio no more. He had that shit down pat.
Help with the recording process isn't the only thing that Wick would get from his dad either. Growing up, his father's nickname was always Big Nard, so Wick's nickname was always Lil Nard. When he decided to become a rapper, Wick would settle on Nardo to honor the nickname that he shares with his dad, while Wick was added to remind everybody just how wicked Nardo Wick really is at the rap game.
Nardo, like, they used to call me Nard. I'm Lil Nard, cause my daddy Big Nard. And then just Nardo, cause it's more like a rapper name. Then Wick, short for wicked.
Once he was knee-deep in recording, Wick would finally begin to release tracks in the early stages of 2020. First came Face Shot in May of 2020, but eventually that baby would get deleted from the internet as Wick continued to refine what he imagined his sound to be. Came Up would be his next song to see release in September, and by this time his rhyming style was really starting to solidify. Wick's unique ability to weave the graphic history of his street life with some truly absurdist punchlines would crystallize once and for all as he released his breakthrough track, Who Wants Smoke, in January of 2021. In fact, Wick was so determined to ensure that this video popped that he actually shot it twice when he realized that the first edit included so many guns and firearms that it wouldn't be possible to promote properly on social media. When the reshot video finally dropped, it found considerable success, but it was actually the track's popularity on TikTok that would help bring in its stream count up over 10 million in a matter of months.
How'd that feel when you first saw that? And also, like, were you kind of scared, like, oh, I don't want people to label me as that, like, that TikTok?
Can't label me as that, you feel me? Because I'm not that, so I'm real. You feel me? They just did it. All I do is make the music, you feel me? I ain't got control of that, you feel me?
Ready to capitalize, Nick continued to drop single after single to keep his name buzzing. As 2021 carried onwards, tracks like AAV, Knock Knock, and Pull Up would see release as Wick was even recruited to appear on the soundtrack to the Oscar-winning picture Judas and the Black Messiah. Creating with an extremely short turnaround, Wick would record IDeclare War in just 24 hours. Then, by the end of the year, the inevitable remix for Who Wants Smoke would drop with a brand new music video directed by Cole Bennett. This remix would take the single from a viral sensation and turn it into a top 20 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. It would also lead to a particularly juicy recording contract from the folks over at RCA. Unfortunately, shortly after, Wick would sign on the dotted line and things would nearly blow up in his face. In August of 2021, Wick and a couple other associates of his were arrested by US Marshals. At the time, news broke that Wick had been detained for reportedly concealing a firearm. The entire situation was caught dramatically on camera as it unfolded. Wick was later released soon after his arrest because the search of his person had been unwarranted at the time. The cops were actually there to arrest one of his associates, which is something that should have had nothing to do with Nardo.
Picked my brother up for murder, but they was coming from him. But we was leaving the hotel. We were finna come to Atlanta. We were getting in the car with our bag, and they all hopped out on us. But it was only for him, so they wasn't even supposed to fuck with me.
Right, but they ended up putting you in cuffs, putting you on the ground, all that shit.
They was only supposed to fuck with him.
Once Nardo was back out, he hit the studio with the help of his dad and the rest of his entourage to wrap up the recording of his debut album, Who Is Nardo Wick. That project would finally see release in December of 2021, where it would go on to sell nearly 30,000 copies in its very first week. As for where Nardo's career takes him from here, well, that's a story for another time and another place. I mean, after all, this is before they were famous. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Clyde Smith, and if you guys enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another episode.